Hey, what's up? It's Emilio DiSpirito, and this is the Wealth Architect Podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you each and every single week. My team and I have hand-selected our guests to come on the program to talk about how to build wealth financially, mentally, physically, spiritually, right? There's so much that goes into building a lifestyle full of wealth, and we hope that this content really reaches you, not only in your brain, but in your heart, and that you could do something with this. So thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and we're going to have a great show. A special thank you to our sponsor, Annie Mac Home Mortgage, whose Cash to Keys product is disrupting the industry. Sick and tired of finding the perfect home, not having your offer selected? I got to tell you, it happens all the time. With Cash to Keys, Annie Mac gives sellers a cash guarantee for each of their buyers' offers. Stop bidding and hoping. Instead, bid with Annie Mac and bid with confidence. Don't just bid, but win. Annie Mac Mortgage. Do you currently own an abundance of multifamily properties? Are you tired of working with property management companies that just continue to drop the ball and disappoint you? Why don't you start your own franchise? Go ahead and contact our friends at Nexus Property Management to see how their proprietary information and systems and marketing can work for you. The success that they have had all over the country is unbelievable. Check them out, Nexus Property Management, and go ahead and let them know you heard it here on The Wealth Architect. Season 2, Episode 12 of the Wealth Architect Podcast. I'm Emilio DiSpirito. Today, we've got some really good conversation. We're going to be talking about building wealth through real estate and the opportunities in today's marketplace here in the United States. We're also going to be talking with Melissa Delana of Delana Law, and she focuses on building wealth through legacy. Okay, she's an attorney, has been in the real estate game for, about 20 years or so, and her family almost 50 years in the practice of law. So we're going to be talking about some things you could do to preserve your legacy. Great content today for anybody looking to build wealth. So we're going to dive right into it today. So all across the country, we have something happening that hasn't happened in about 5 years. Can you guess what that is? And if that's opportunity for buyers, if that's what you guessed, that's right, okay? It's so funny how the world works. It seems when everybody is rushing to get to the store to buy that TV that's on sale or to rush for stocks that are skyrocketing, it seems like people follow that mentality. If everybody else is doing it, I should do it too. And it couldn't be further from the truth. You know, when there's more buyers out there shopping for anything, especially homes, the prices go up, right? More demand equals higher prices. It equals less concessions for you, the buyer, which leaves less money in your pocket. So today, if you're looking to build wealth through real estate, meaning passive income, appreciation over the years through investment properties, right now is your opportunity to find and lock up those properties and get it done. Here is why. There are fewer buyers out in the marketplace due to seasonality in many of the markets, especially the colder markets in the United States. Or how about all of that inventory that has hit the market and is actually sitting in so many locations down south, out west, Midwest, right? What is happening? Why is it like somebody shut the water spigot off? Well, consumer confidence was at a low with the government shutdown. Interest rates have dropped, but not nearly enough where it would spur all the activity in the marketplace. But I think enough for me to make some profit on some stuff. And we're kind of running into that. Also, 42%, according to Redex, 42% of properties on the market listed in MLS across the United States have seen price reductions. Think about that. You see a property on the market for 30 days or more in most markets, that feels like an eternity to those sellers, especially when they're dropping the price, dropping the price, dropping the price. The opportunities lie there for you as a buyer or an investor to go in and pick up these properties at a substantial discount compared to what they're going to be. Okay, so here's how I'm looking at it. Okay, when you're out there buying when no one else is or very few are, you're not only going to save on price, you're also going to get better terms, meaning you're going to still be able to do those inspections. And if you're an investor, a lot of times I buy stuff as is. But if you're buying a multifamily, a 3, 4, 5, 6 plus unit, whatever it is, you could still do the inspections. And if something comes up that the sellers didn't disclose, you could always ask the sellers to fix those, adding more ching coin in your pocket. All right. So I want you to be aware of that if you're out in that marketplace right now looking to buy, because in my estimation, the time to purchase and invest in real estate to create massive wealth over the next near future would be here in November and December of 2025, maybe in January. And again, I'm talking for more of like the colder markets, okay? More of like the Northeast or Northern markets. But that time is right now. Okay. And you will do really well, I believe. What's going to happen is when the spring hits, I do believe that the interest rates are going to come down. You're going to see less inventory because stuff is going to go a lot quicker. And with less inventory and more demand with buyers in the marketplace, it's going to literally shrink what's available for you, the buyer, and it's going to have prices appreciating. So now here's another thing I want to talk with you about. If you are a home builder or if you are a home flipper, okay, right now is when you need to be out there purchasing stuff. If you're a builder, I've seen a lot of builders move towards condominiums instead of single family homes for several reasons. Okay, I've got a couple builder clients, fantastic. One of them was on the show, Dan with North Point Builders. He is fantastic, builds a high quality product, was building single family homes for a while. Him and I had a conversation. I said, Dan, you know what? Why don't you look into condominiums? And he was like, that's a good idea. So his brain started ticking. He found a lot. He brought it to me. He's like, Emilio, I'm going to knock down the single family home. I'm going to look to put 4 condos, 2 different townhouse styles side by side. I'm going to put these in. And voila, he did. And now he's looking at even bigger projects only months after, okay, getting away from that single family home market, building these condos. Now, why? Because you can do more with one lot. In many cases, a lot of places need housing and they're willing to give you a variance. They're willing to work with you to put more housing units in one area. If you can put even just 2 condos versus 1 single family home, you're going to save on the materials because it's literally rinse and repeat. It's basically the same thing side by side. You got the contractors there, the builders there, and you're getting more profit on each side versus the single family home, just one set of profit, one piece of profit instead of a set of profit, right? Instead of 2 different pieces of profit. So never mind when you can put 4 on a lot or 8 or so on and so forth. So I want you to kind of think about that and what that could do for your business. And kind of if you're doing single family homes, you might want to look at doing the condominiums, depending on your market, of course. And listen, I'm connected with real estate advisors all over the world, okay? But specifically, I'm talking about the United States right now. Any market in which you're looking in, I either have a connection there or I can make a connection there for somebody that you should be working with that can advise you on what type of areas to purchase in, where you can maximize your interests and make some more profit there. And we have local teams all over the place. We have private lenders. We've got real estate advisors, attorneys, whatever you need in any given marketplace, and we can assist you with that. A couple other things I want to talk about. If you're a seller, okay, if you're somebody who owns property and you're looking to maximize and take and sell a property to either do a 1031 exchange or to cash out, 2 different people there. Okay, so if you're looking to do a 1031 exchange, my suggestion is that you list the property right now on the market and you list it at a price that's going to drive traffic. Okay, right now is a really good time to be doing that because you can also take the proceeds of that and you can put it back into the marketplace before the market pops. Again, I think going into late winter, early spring of 2026, you're going to find far more buyers out there, and the competition is going to be absolutely crazy, where it's going to pass that like threshold of it's going to be less of a benefit to sell then, and go after and try to buy something. It's just going to be a more competitive market with less inventory. So put your stuff on now and get it priced right, get it prepared to sell, get it ready to market, and cash out on that. Take that 1031 exchange money, identify your 3 properties or so, and up to 3 properties within that 45-day mark, and then go out and hunt and find something with less traffic. The benefit of that, okay, aside from going up against less buyers and paying less, is that you're also going to put yourself in a position where you can refinance that rate later on, whether it's 6 months or a year later on down the road. You can even refi and have that payment even lower. So there's a lot of different things you can do, and wealth happens when you put a strategy into place. All right. There's not enough time in the world here in this podcast to go over all of the intricacies of your specific deal. And that's when you need to be linking up with a tried and true advisor. I'm going to give you some tips. If you don't want to use my network here nationally and globally to find your advisor, I'm going to give you some tips that you can use in your given market to find the person that's right for you to either invest with or develop if they're a real estate agent. Number one, you're going to want to read their Google reviews. You're also going to want to look at their sale history. You can pull that up in Zillow, by the way. Zillow does a really good job of putting everybody's sales history in there. And you're going to want to see that they're selling product like what you are having them list or help you buy. Okay. And then the other thing too is you're going to want to interview them. You're going to want to see what they're all about. You're going to want to see what their real deal experience is, have them tell you about stories of some wins, some losses, type of clientele that they work with, see if they have any clients that you can even talk with, especially if you're looking to do a big project. And you're also going to want to know what their sphere of influence looks like, who their network is, and what type of referral partners they're going to be able to link you up with. Do they have a surveyor? Do they have attorneys? Do they have financial people? Do they have private lenders? Do they have banks that can think outside of the box and get you lended on properties that others cannot? So all of that is going to directly benefit you and your wealth building in real estate. Look, again, there's so much to it, but I wish you the absolute best. I'm so excited to get our next guest on here. She's waiting in the waiting room. I want to pull her in. But again, I'm Emilio DiSpirito. This is the Wealth Architect Podcast, and we'll be right back here with Melissa Delana, and we're going to be talking about building wealth through a legacy in real estate. Stay tuned. This is the Wealth Architect. When you're buying real estate, you need somebody that understands the ins and outs of the legal ends. It's so important to have the right attorney working for you. You also need a bulldog. Let me tell you something. The first time I sat in a conference room with this lady, Melissa Delana of Delana Law, I immediately knew she owned the room. You need an attorney that owns the room, that can solve problems and make things happen when everybody else can't. You want to hire Delana Law in Massachusetts, Connecticut, or Rhode Island. Delana Law delivers every single time. They're going to help you out with all of your real estate needs. It's delanalaw.com. You got to check them out. Welcome to the Wealth Architect Podcast. I'm Emilio DiSpirito. This is season 2, episode number 12. Segment number 2. We're here today with Melissa Delana of Delana Law. She's been practicing real estate law, believe it or not, for about 21 years. Yep. Wow. 21 years. So we're going to be talking with Melissa today about preserving wealth and leaving a legacy through real estate trusts. Okay. Super important topic. I find that a lot of investors come up through the ranks, they establish a large amount of wealth, and then I've seen people lose it over the years, or, just leave less behind for their loved ones, without operating the correct way. So we want to we want to create our wealth, we want to preserve it and protect it, and we also want to leverage it too. So there's several ways you could do that through a trust, and I'm learning every single day. And that's why we call on the professionals, and we got Melissa here. Melissa, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So it's a great topic. We discussed it with someone else, another attorney on the show, but I like having different takes on it. Okay, it's a very trusts and the way that you build them, and like what you put in them, and how it's like somebody could explain something one way, somebody could explain another way, and everybody has different ways of doing things.
Yep.
So I'm excited to dive into this topic with you. Thank you.
Just thinking about real estate, there's very few tangible assets that you can use every day and still appreciate in value. Think about it.
Sure.
Right? Short of maybe musical instruments or collectibles, that's just not a thing that we see. So for us, identifying as real estate holding as the easiest way to create and establish wealth, and then making sure that if there's generational wealth considerations where folks want the value to be preserved, that they're making the proper plans. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a trust. That's one alternative that we see clients implement in a way to ensure that they are going to maintain and preserve wealth against creditors, against, possible collection if they ever end up on a Medicaid type program. So I do think it's really just about preserving that wealth, collecting it, creating it, preserving it.
Absolutely. Now, some people, they just operate completely out of the trust, right? And that's kind of like, I hear some of my clients, some people, I see people on YouTube, this and that, they're operating out of the trust. Can you kind of walk us through that? Like, just pretend like, look, I don't know a lot about it, and I want to learn more about it, but pretend like we know nothing about it, right? Like, if you have the money, if you have the assets in a trust, it has to stay in that trust, right?
Yes.
You can't take it out.
No, so it really depends. There are very different types of trusts. So the type of trust that might be established for a young person like yourself or myself versus someone who is closer to the end of life. And we really are looking for Medicaid preservation, tax avoidance, legacy and succession planning would be completely handled different. But in either case, you generally would want to ensure that any trust assets remain trust assets. I think for me, one of the biggest challenges that clients face is making sure that they've titled the assets into the name of the trust. So I just had a client a couple of weeks ago that I was counseling with, and they have a house in a trust and they're selling the house. And I suggested, okay, well, when the proceeds from the house settle, it will be paid to your trust account. Do you have a bank account set up for the trust? They said, no. I said, well, are your bank accounts trust accounts? No. So it seems to me that they didn't fully develop this trust plan as a result of their initial planning because they only titled the asset of the house in that account. Now, maybe that was their initial plan because perhaps this was an estate asset or a trust asset that was created at a younger age, but now as they're starting to age up, we're thinking about, okay, well, we want to at least maintain it in the trust, but unless it becomes irrevocable, you're not going to be able to preclude it from creditor reach, which is why, like I said, the type of trust you and I might create versus somebody who's perhaps in their late 60s or 70s or later would be vastly different. And it's always going to be need-based.
Got it. So revocable trusts, right? I always thought it was revocable.
Yeah, you really can say
Tomato,
either way.
tomato.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So revocable trusts. Those are trusts that you can eliminate, that you can get out of, right?
Yes.
So maybe they're a little bit more lenient, or if.
I mean, I don't know if lenient, sometimes they may be less expensive to set up. So that is certainly a factor or a consideration, but also you can reach in and change it at any time. So the reality is if you can reach it, so can your creditors. And that's the good rule of thumb to remember.
Yeah. Oh, it makes sense. All right. So if you have an asset in that trust, you sell it, it has to stay within that trust.
Yes.
Okay. Can the trust access instruments like the 1031 exchange? Can you use that within a trust?
Yes.
You can. Okay, cool. Can you have corporations within a trust?
It depends. There's always going to be state specific as to whether or not. I would say, generally speaking, we don't see a lot of corporate holdings in a trust because generally the trust is going to be its own kind of legal entity, independent. However, an LLC or a corporation may be another way in which there's kind of a separation from the original grantor into a third party where you're trying to designate different people that own the property versus the ones that are utilizing it.
Got it. So, I mean, when we're looking at, we're talking about revocable trusts right now, revocable, we're talking about revocable trusts right now. Like, let's just say like someone in my position, right? Like I'm 41 years old. I have some investment properties. Like, would I be better off holding those in an LLC or would I be better off holding those in a trust? Or is that a loaded question?
Such a great question. Very loaded because it really becomes directed by the client's preferences and priorities and risk assessment. So one of the benefits that I usually would recommend for clients that are holding investment properties would be to create that established separation where perhaps a third-party entity owns it. Because from a rental perspective, to mitigate liability in the event of a slip and fall or somebody ever got hurt at the property, you may not want something as close to you like a trust to own that property. It may be a good opportunity to create that separation. And there's so many formalities that need to be maintained. It's not good enough just to say, hey, 103 Main Street LLC. You need to actually maintain separate books. There needs to be separate bank accounts. There needs to be separate agreements that need to be drafted for that entity, because it is so important that you're establishing that entity as a living, breathing, independent, so that your personal assets, whether they're in trust or not in trust, are not going to be reachable. So that if, God forbid, there was an accident or an incident at that 103 Main Street, they can only reach the assets that are contained in that LLC.
The hardest thing about being in business and about being an investor, about being somebody that's creating wealth through so many different avenues is like, there's no one size fits all. And really, like, it's a strategy, and you have to, that's why you got to sit down and you got to talk with the attorneys. You got to talk with the financial advisors. You have to talk with your real estate advisors.
Absolutely. It really has to be a comprehensive approach, because it is not going to be, your solution is not going to be maybe congruent with my solution. So I think it is super important. Like I said, it's all about client priorities, preferences, risk tolerance. So just to watch something on YouTube and say, oh, that's what I need to do. I need to get a
like this show.
Right. Because I think that we're trying to demonstrate that that's not the right solution. Is it really has to be personalized and tailored to your jurisdiction, your respective needs, whether or not you have a strategy from a timeline perspective. It's not really much different than any type of investing, really.
So, all right, when you have a trust, like, how is that set up? What are the positions held in a trust? Like, who needs to be where? If you die, how does it work? Or if you want to, like, hand it off to somebody, can you do that? Can you gift the trust? Like, can you step out of the trust because it's its own separate entity? Can you explain the inner workings of that?
Yep. So generally speaking, just from baseline understanding, is that the settlor or the grantor is the person who's creating the trust. And then you're going to have the trustee, who is the person who's administering the trust. So that's the person who's making the decisions. And then you're going to have the beneficiaries, and those are the parties that are going to benefit under the trust.
Okay.
Now, sometimes the trustee is also the grantor and is also the beneficiary. That's a very standard, revocable grantor living trust, right? Something that, again, a young person might do. I created the trust. I'm going to continue administering the trust as the trustee for my benefit so long as I live.
Yep.
And that would be a very basic trust, which says if I'm no longer alive, now the beneficiaries are going to be designated as heirs or successors, charities, however it's structured.
Got it. What happens if you have a beneficiary in there that, like, let's just say a nonprofit, and that nonprofit ceases to exist, like, and if there's no other beneficiaries?
That would be a problem for the draftsman, right? Because our job as lawyers is everything's fine until it's not fine. So it's really important that we are kind of always worrying about, well, the what ifs. What if this is no longer the case? So having contingent beneficiaries is really important.
Got it.
Generally, if it's a nonprofit, there would be some sort of identification. If this entity no longer exists, then we would like charitable funds to an entity similar to be distributed. Or if you had other beneficiaries, you would just have to treat it as if that provision had, been satisfied.
Got it. Now, what are the tax benefits? Thank you for that. What are the tax benefits of operating out of a trust?
So I'm not sure that there is a lot of tax benefits per se.
I know I should be talking with a tax attorney for this or something.
But again, this is a conversation that needs to be addressed with an accountant, with a financial planner, with your respective attorneys. These are all questions that, like I said, from a thorough and completeness, you can't just have a conversation with one person. And as a drafting attorney, while we don't handle a lot of trust work, we refer it out. We always counsel with our clients about, have you spoken to your accountant, financial planner, and then I can direct you to this attorney. Some attorneys' offices will actually offer more of a one-stop shop. I don't know. I think that you can be good but only at a few things. So
Agreed,
it makes me
yeah.
nervous unless you have professionals that have, degrees in taxation and do a lot of trust planning. And certainly those firms do exist, both in this state and outside this jurisdiction. So you can find someone that can offer you some of those protections. But I mean, real estate in general offers tax benefits that I think, from a renter sitting on the sidelines saying, well, I'm going to wait for the prices to come down, because we hear that still.
Oh God, yeah.
That this is where you're going to create the wealth, is having the real estate holdings, making that decision. I'm representing a client right now, and the family bought the property for $14,500.
When?
In the 60s.
Wow.
And that's crazy, right? Because you're like, my God, I wish I could have bought up all the real estate in the 60s.
Yeah.
But think about it. That was a lot of money back then.
Sure.
That was market value. Just like we're seeing market value today. Just like 5 years ago, people sat on the sidelines and waited, and look at what the trajectory of the real estate values have been in those past 5 years. So it's
Agreed,
just, there's no time like the present if you are looking to use an asset that is also going to appreciate in value. Again, determined by your time horizon. How long are you planning to use that property? What are your end goals for it?
It reminds me of that quote, Melissa, that the best time to plant the tree was 20 years ago. Definitely. The second best time is today.
Yeah.
So, I agree with you 100%. And how many times do we hear people say, I wish I would have bought 5 years ago? The opportunity is there every day.
I actually have an example of a very close family friend who sold their property in 2015, and they sold at what they thought was the top of the market.
Oh, I know. Everyone thinks it's always the top of the market.
And they rented because they were looking for land to build on, and they thought, this is too much. We're going to keep looking. It's now 10 years later. They're still renting. So that's a pretty sobering example of a place where waiting on the sidelines is going to cost you money. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent on rent, and they're accumulating no assets.
Wild.
They're having no tax benefits. That is just so, like I said, to me, it's a test that I've seen time and time again.
I don't understand that mindset, and it's not, I don't want to say anyone's like silly for thinking that. I understand it's like you want to buy stuff at the right time, at the right price, but you can never time the market. I've talked with people. So actually Stuart Siegel, he's the president over at Engel & Volker's Americas. He's actually the one who founded Sotheby's. Oh. And he's been in the marketplace 45 years, I believe. And he said, Emilio, you can never time the market. And he said, it's a really good opportunity. He just told me this 2 weeks ago when I saw him in Portugal. He said, Emilio, it's a really good opportunity right now. If I was looking to buy real estate and if I was on the sidelines, I would jump into it right now because the market is perfect right now for buyers. They're not going to have this opportunity for God knows how long again.
And there are certain jurisdictions where there's like houses being given away because there's overpopulated segments. We're not seeing that necessarily in New England. It's a pretty balanced market, but I think there are certain parts of the country that are the supply and demand scales have tipped. Yeah,
I agree. Actually, even here in the Northeast where supply has been suffocated for 5 years, it's finally kind of freed up. And I was just talking about before you jumped on here with us today. But yeah, if you're looking to, build legacy, if you're looking to build wealth, right now is that great time to do it. And you should be buying properties when fewer people are out there buying the properties. And then you want to secure these properties, secure your legacy in a trust, and name your beneficiaries, because you never know. Like what's here today is not going to be here tomorrow. Tomorrow could be several tomorrows from now. But, look, it happens. There's two things we can't avoid, and it's taxes and death.
Yep.
Okay, so we need to be like ready for this.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the idea of, or, what we've talked about is legacy and succession. There's always an opportunity for the elders of a family to gift money to their children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews so that they can buy in their own name. You don't necessarily always have to control those purse strings, right? Wouldn't it be better to see them enjoy and make those decisions on their own to be able to acquire? And I'll be honest with you, Emilio, I bought my first property and I was a kid. I was in law school and my dad let me borrow money and he gifted it to me. Ultimately, it wasn't something I repaid to avoid mortgage insurance because back then that was like a taboo word. They did not say it.
Yeah.
So I was able to put down the money. I didn't have 20% in savings and I bought my house in East Greenwich for $126,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
In East Greenwich. Did you sell it?
I did sell it. I sold it for $280,000.
There you go.
I don't know, 5 years later, and it has since sold for $450,000.
Yeah.
I have always said it's like the one that got away. I wish I had kept it because I could have rented it. It's a great starter home. It's a great rental for a small family. It's a great downsize home. This is such a great house, and it was actually relocated from the airport to Sun Valley years and years ago. I had seen pictures of the house being moved. I know it's really, really cool history. But to imagine that there's opportunities to invest and have your family help fund your own wealth building is really a great way to see it. And, certainly no, you can never time the market, but I have bought and sold. And I think when you're buying and selling in communities that are solid, you're always going to find that those investments are going to survive the ups and the downs a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree with that. Real estate is just one of those things that I'm 100% confident in. The other thing that not a lot of people are talking about is the push towards communism. And I don't want to make this political.
Thank God.
Yeah. But I mean, you're seeing this. You're seeing in different marketplaces, New York, Providence, places where you have politicians that don't own real estate. They're trying to make the rules and they're making it less attractive for investors, for landlords, for people that are actually providing housing. Okay. And it's not good. These ideals do not work in a place like the United States. It's going to ultimately look like the other countries where those practices are in, and it's not good. So the point, what I'm making here, without going on that political tangent, is that you are better off, right? If you can own these properties, you can own them, and you got to stick up for your rights, obviously, but you're better off owning these properties and holding on to these properties, because I do believe that corporations are going to continue to come in large scale and buy stuff up, and they're going to continue to suffocate the small guys out. So right now is a really good time to be building up your inventory, to be building up your wealth, to be, building up the amount of doors that you have and collecting your fair share of the rent, because the rent is going to continue to increase.
And then you have no control.
Property,
right?
Yeah.
So, the couple that I spoke about, they've been renting for 10 years. Certainly their rent has only gone up. Their, lifestyle has not changed. They're still in the same place. They can't make the improvements. You can't modify it to be your own. I can't imagine being a long-term renter knowing that there are dynamics heading this way that make it even less attractive to rent.
Correct. Yeah. And, one thing just to finish my point about, that communist type of mentality, which doesn't work, is that, the government owning anything is not good. Okay. So we have to, especially as Americans, I'm talking with all of you, you cannot allow that to seep into your communities. Those ideals, they do not work. It doesn't work. And we have to keep it private ownership, especially of our real estate. That is so darn important, because real estate is one of the pillars of our economy in the United States. And I've seen people come up through the ranks from being extremely poor. I've worked with my clients, myself included, extremely poor, to growing wealth, okay, and doing really well. So we need to hold on to that. We need to protect that and preserve that. So be active in your communities, be active in your towns, and go to the town meetings, go to the city hall, just be there and fight for that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get too far off topic because we're talking, but that is part of our legacy here
Right.
too.
Well, and one way that you can even build from an initial acquisition perspective and create those land baron goals of building doors is to buy multifamilies. You know, a lot of folks will strategically purchase the first unit for themselves. It's 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever they can afford.
Yeah.
And they'll live there while the cost of maintenance is being deferred and defrayed by the other tenants. And then eventually they'll move out of that unit. And now they've got a fully rented multifamily and they go on to buy a single family or another multifamily. And, you know, with the tax avoidance benefits that we have, or if they're going to keep it, there are so many ways that you can build the wealth as a result of even just purchasing what could become an investment property in the future.
That's right. You know, so one of the things, like, especially if you're younger, if you're looking to build up your inventory, you're looking to eventually put that into a revocable trust, right? If I was you and if I was listening to this and if I didn't have any properties and I was buying my first home, I would go for a duplex and I would use FHA financing, 3.5% down, and I would go for a 2-family. And the reason why I would do that is because 2 families, they really do hold their value very well. And they offer you a really good opportunity to use this government-backed financing in all 50 states with 3.5% down, which is literally, it's hardly anything, okay? You can save for that over a course of a year, 2 years, whatever, 3, 4 years, whatever. Save that money, put that as your down payment. There are some states that have housing programs that give you a grant to even cover that, okay? But you can also get gift money to apply towards that too, which is nice. But you're going in at a very low threshold and you have a property that is going to continue to appreciate over time. A few years into this, you can get rid of your PMI. A few years later after that, and again, it takes time. A few years later after that, you can pull out a HELOC, a home line of equity, and take some equity out there. You can invest that equity. You can buy stuff. You can flip stuff. You could do so much with that money.
Make improvements to it.
You can't, but you cannot do that if you're renting.
Nope.
You know?
No, you can't. And I think there are so many people who are on the sidelines thinking like, wow, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? I wish I had done that previously.
Yeah,
Imagine
correct.
where I'd be. But like you said, if you don't take advantage and capitalize on it at the present time, you're not going to be where you want to be 5 or 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So doing nothing is a decision. Unfortunately, not a great one. If you are not considering home ownership, I would really ask why. And speak to an advisor about what alternatives you may be eligible for, because every state that offers these programs might be different. So it will be important for you to be familiar with them and make a plan. Just because you would like to purchase a property doesn't mean you'll be ready right away. There may be credit restoration items or other things that you have to address in anticipation of your goal or your plans, right? I mean, goals are nothing if you haven't set together the plan in which you're going to achieve them.
And a deadline, right? So let's talk about people like potentially later on in their life, or people that are more concerned about, you know, moving on, right? Dying. Okay. So irrevocable trusts. Okay. That would be fit for that type of the person that's concerned about maybe in the next 5 or 10 years going into a nursing home, assisted living, or something
so
like
it's
that.
interesting you said 5 to 10 years because there is presently a 5-year look back. While you can purchase or own a home and be eligible for Medicaid, a primary residence is excluded. The struggle becomes what happens after death and whether or not the state would ultimately, or the government, have an opportunity for a claim against the asset. So that's really one of those questions, depending on how you have protected the asset.
Yep.
But an irrevocable trust, now you've got me stumbling on it.
I know, right?
Those trusts are going to no longer be something you can change your mind in. So what we were talking about before for younger folks would not necessarily work for someone who is planning for end of life, legacy, succession, tax avoidance, mitigation of Medicaid type concerns, that's where the irrevocable trust would be most helpful. And this would no longer allow for the person who's created the trust to also serve as the trustee and the beneficiary. You're basically removing yourself from the trust so that you cannot get the principal value of that asset. So you really do have to be spending a fair amount of time with the practitioners about, well, what other assets do you have to draw on? Because once you've created this, you can't touch it, which is the great part, because neither can your creditors. Wow. This is how that succession plan works, where you have appointed, hopefully, family member that you trust as the trustee to administer it, or you could hire a corporate trustee.
Yep.
The issue there is they charge money. And, if you're trying to maximize the benefit to the beneficiaries of the trust estate, you don't necessarily want to hire or pay for a corporate trustee, but that is certainly an option. And then you would designate the beneficiaries upon, the trust being sold.
Can in an irrevocable trust type of situation, can the beneficiaries take assets out? Can they benefit, I guess, from that while you are still?
It depends on what the assets of the trust are. I mean, I was going to say, if it's real estate, you're sort of limited, right? Because this asset is just held by the trust and it really doesn't go anywhere or do anything.
But cash.
But yes, if you had bank accounts in a trust, if you had maybe stocks, bonds, other things that were named in the trust, vehicles, collectibles, that kind of thing, then certainly the beneficiaries would have access to it in accordance with the trust agreement.
Could they give that money? Could the beneficiary take the money out and then give it to is it called the trustee?
No, ultimately you're talking about the person who created the trust, right? That's the settler.
They can't.
They're not supposed to, because that's the whole point.
Yeah.
There are provisions that can be put in where interest can be earned to that person.
To the settler?
Right, but the principal can't go back to them. So it would only be interest on the assets as they're earned.
Got it.
So there are very exclusive rules.
Okay, got it. So what type of assets can you put into a trust?
Anything can be titled into
Businesses?
a trust.
You said anything.
I know, I did.
Jet skis?
Jet skis. Cars.
Cars?
Yes.
Okay. So pretty much any kind of
I suppose a trust could be a member of an entity.
Okay.
So that could work.
So you could have the trust as a partner in a business?
Yeah.
Right.
Again, this all comes down to, well, what's your strategic plan? Because if that business were to fail, do you want to create more separation? So I think that's where it's not often done, because we're sort of treating them as separate for that liability mitigation.
It's complicated.
It is complicated.
It really is. So if the top professionals that somebody should talk with, Melissa, if they are interested in building a trust, who are those top 3, 4, 5 professionals that they need to speak with?
I would say they want to talk to an estate planning attorney. I think they should speak to a financial advisor and potentially their accountant. So I think those are the 3 top. And then if there are assets that are either in the trust or they want to acquire in a trust specific to real estate, then they would need to be speaking to a real estate attorney and or a real estate advisor.
Yeah. Thank you. What about what about a tax attorney? I'm hearing more and more and more tax attorneys. People are contacting them, leveraging them. Would they have anything to do with this too?
There could be. Yeah, there certainly could be a need for it. I think usually you start with the accountant, and if it's over the accountant's level of expertise, they would defer you to a tax attorney, in my experience. So.
Wow. Got it. Awesome. So Melissa Delana of Delana Law, appreciate you coming out and educating us on trust. Needless to say, this is definitely something that you don't throw into ChatGPT and try to figure out on your own. You really have to be sitting down with these advisors, and you got to look at your exact situation. And this literally, talking with you, just makes me look and reflect at what I have going on. And I know what I need to be doing, and it's we get caught up in the weeds of business, and we don't think about if I die tomorrow, right? what's going to happen with my assets? Am I truly leaving a legacy? And that's really what you need to get on sooner than later. And you need to be updating this regularly, and you need to make sure that your family is protected. It's so important. So thank you so much, Melissa.
Yes. Happy to be here and to help.
Great stuff. Awesome. Thank you. So good stuff. Great podcast. If you loved what you've seen, if you learned something, or you felt we should cover something else, feel free to leave it in the comments on all of our social media. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on SoundCloud, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, and you can also follow us on Instagram. Thank you so much. I'm Emilio DiSpirito, your wealth architect, and today we have Melissa Delana of Delana Law. God bless you. We'll see you back here next week on The Wealth Architect.